The Liberal government plans to legalize recreational marijuana by July 2018, but has no plans to give pardons for past pot convictions during the transition period. Since Justin Trudeau has become Prime Minister, there have been more than 22,000 arrests for cannabis possession across Canada. Joining us now is Bill Blair, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice and former undercover drug cop who is leading the charge to legalize marijuana. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Good to be here, Ben.
I want to read something to you because the issue of amnesty for pot convictions has come up. It really seems to be dominating the conversation these days. So I'm going to read this. Be it further resolved that a new Liberal government will extend amnesty to all Canadians previously convicted of simple and minimal marijuana possession and ensure the elimination of all criminal records related thereto. So that's a Liberal policy resolution from 2012. But it's most definitely not the position of this government in 2017. So why the disconnect?
Ben, right now we have a system of cannabis control in place. It's been in place since 1922, and it remains in effect until we bring in new legislation to properly and more effectively regulate and restrict the production, distribution, and consumption of cannabis. Until that important work gets done, we're not going to nullify the existing law. And so it will remain in effect. I think it's quite frankly premature to have that discussion. The important work that we're doing now is to make sure that we put in a strong and effective regulatory framework that'll do exactly what we intend to do a better job of protecting our kids, a better job of keeping our communities safe, and a better job of protecting Canadians' health.
So if I'm reading you correctly, it sounds like once this legislation becomes law, we could revisit the issue.
Well, you know, that really isn't my call, but certainly I've heard across the country people are concerned. And one of the harms that we have entered into this initiative for, we're trying to reduce all the social and health harms. And one of the harms is the criminal record that so many of our young people have had over the number of years. But, you know, you quoted a number earlier about how many people are being charged. It's based on an extrapolation of data up until 2015. There has been, you know, a very responsible approach for law enforcement, our prosecutors, and the judiciary on how these matters are now being dealt with. There's discretion at all stages of the criminal justice system, and I think that discretion is being exercised quite appropriately. And in the interim, you know, we'll continue to work to keep our communities safe, but we have a big job to do to make sure that we do this right.
Now, some are saying that this proposed legislation is actually going to mean more work for police, you know, from the height of plants to a saliva test to making sure pot is not sold to minors. Seems like there's going to be more work for an already overstretched police budget around the country.
You know, different work.
Yeah. Different
work. And frankly, I've never been shy about making police officers work hard.
Yeah.
We have a job to do to keep our communities safe. But you know, what we're intending to do is make sure that we give our police officers the right legislation, effective regulation that will actually achieve public purpose. The laws as they currently exist, you know, just processing a simple possession of marijuana charge is about 22 hours of work. And so we are relieving, through our work here, when the regulations are properly in place, much of that effort and that burden on the criminal justice system, but we're asking them to do other things to help us enforce effective regulation. And to ensure that we have a safe supply of cannabis for adults who choose to use this. And I think everyone will acknowledge we've got to do a better job protecting our kids, and police officers get that. That's one of their greatest responsibilities, is protecting the most vulnerable in our society.
Putting a former undercover drug cop in charge of this file, some people scratch their heads at that. Where's your head in all of this, on this file particularly? Where's your heart?
I spent my entire life keeping communities safe, protecting kids, you know, dealing with organized crime. I chaired the National Organized Crime Committee for a number of years. But the safety of our citizens and the protection of our kids has always been my greatest priority. And this is just a continuation of that work. I'm not in the least bit conflicted here, because I honestly believe that through an effective system of strict regulation on production and distribution, taking this business away from organized crime and restricting the access kids have to it, we're going to do exactly what, frankly, my life's work has been committed to. We're going to make our communities safer. We're going to protect our kids.
With a great many specifics regarding the age of majority, distribution delegated to the provinces, and then you've got no real consensus on how to administer a roadside saliva test yet, an uncosted national cannabis tracking system. It seems like there are, well, some people would say, and I'm not going to apologize for this pun, it seems that some of this is half-baked. And a lot of people want to know, with all of this stuff that's still up in the air and a lot of work still to be done, can the government commit that legal and available marijuana will be available to consumers by July of 2018?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, we're not going into this with a blank page. Our task force did an extraordinary job in examining many of these issues. But the appropriate level of governance, the appropriate level of legal response and regulation, some of it is federal, certainly around managing the production side. But you know, I'll give you a simple example. We don't want young kids who become in possession of this drug, either purchase it, possess it, or consume it, to face a criminal record. So we've got federal legislation that covers that, but we need to work with the provinces so the provinces can put in the appropriate level of regulation.
But can we get there?
Yeah, of course we can get there.
We can get there 18 months from now.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And no one's minimizing the amount of work or the complexity of the work. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to do a better job than we're currently doing. Right now we have the highest rates of cannabis use among our young people in any country in the world. We have to simply do a better job. And so I've heard a consensus right across the country on doing that better job. And I'm convinced that, you know, if we can't drag our feet, but if we work hard at this, we can get it done, and we can get it done right.
Bill Blair, this is top of mind for a lot of Canadians. We appreciate your time this morning walking us through parts of this legislation. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, man. Pleasure.